What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Desai Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, I'm Desai, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of Desai Guys, Mr. Tad Desai. And Tad, we're going to have some fun with today's episode. So we had the schedule release a couple weeks ago. I know we sort of did a quick hit segment, not segment, but a whole episode. And we did
that was a long-ass quick hit segment, dude. That was exhausting.
We did a segment within the episode. That's what I was trying to go for there about the NFL schedule release videos. Some of them we liked, some of them we didn't like. But yeah, this is purely, we're going to be looking at some of the odds, courtesy of our good friends at Bet Online. And just seeing, like, what do we think about the odds that, Bet Online has laid out for some teams? Like, do we like them as far as like picking the over, or are we not as favor of them? We're going to go with the under. I mean, it's just like, we got a handful of teams here that we're going to go over here, but Tad, betting, this is sort of in your wheelhouse again. So, I mean, it's like, how's the excitement level for this episode?
Dude, my excitement level for this episode is obviously through the roof, as is for every episode. But it's so funny.
It's pretty prevalent that you're more excited for other episodes than
others. It's great. I love betting so much. Dude, I have made so much easy money, and I have to just give a shout out to one of my favorite teams in sports. The Miami Heat have been underdogs this entire Eastern Conference Finals. I've been racking in the dollars. It has been fantastic. So, no, trust me, even when football season is off, I am still betting. So, now that football betting is back, the odds are back. I'm seeing those pluses. I'm seeing those minuses. I got that tingle. We're back, baby. Let's do it.
So, Tad, I mean, really quick
Is this a problem?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a problem, but I mean,
it's not a problem till a problem. That's what I always say.
Yeah, sure. So before we get into some of the teams that we sort of did a little bit more research on, I figured we could ask each other about our favorite team. Probably doesn't require a ton of research here, but once again, these odds are courtesy of our good friends at Bet Online. So let's start with your Indianapolis Colts. They have an over/under of 6.5 wins. So I mean, how do you feel about that right now? Over 6.5 wins is at -135. Under 6.5 wins, this is a little bit surprising, plus 105. So you can actually make some money on them actually doing worse. So I mean, just like, how do you feel about the Colts heading into this season? And it's like, what do you think about that 6.5 number there?
Yeah, it's that under I like a lot, which I know a lot of people are like, well, some fan you are. Like, you're taking the under on that. But, I mean,
realistic fan, that's what it is.
Well, exactly. It's been well documented that Colts, I'm not a big believer when it comes to Anthony Richardson. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I will be, especially in his rookie year. Because what's the one big hang up with Anthony Richardson, even if he does work out, it's that he's probably going to struggle right out the gates. And I actually do believe, I am a believer that he will win the starting role from Gardner Minshew before week 1. So I think we're going to
I feel like it's not even winning the role. I think they're going to give it to him. Like, I mean, it's just
exactly.
Like, it's his job to lose, essentially.
Because here's what a lot of people who are not Indianapolis Colts fans don't understand is that Chris Ballard, our GM, should have been fired last year. This is a bad GM who was hooked to 2 coaches now who have been fired. I was utterly shocked that he did not lose his job. And he will do everything he can, as he should, not saying this is the wrong move, but he will do everything he can to save that. And that means getting Anthony Richardson on the field as soon as possible. So I think we are going to have some very, very, big rookie struggles going forward. We do not have an easy schedule. I think I said on last week's episode where when I looked at the Colts schedule release, I had them at about 5 wins. So I think 6.5, that's tough because if we pull off the upset or 2, throws off the entire thing, right? But I am very confident that the Colts are really going to struggle. We've been battling the injury bug for years now, and unfortunately, I just think our defense has lost so many pieces at this point. I can't see us topping 5 wins.
5 wins. Wow. Okay, you're setting it there.
5 and 12. 5 and 12. Unfortunately.
All right. So obviously we got the Niners there. The odds are at 11 wins exactly. So I mean, it's not one of those half odds. So it's very interesting as far as how they decide to do this bet here. So it's under 11 wins is minus 125. Over
Okay.
11 wins is minus 105. So that's where the
Oh,
favorite.
they hit you with the minus? That
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah. So I mean, I'm looking at this roster, and obviously the biggest question mark is the quarterback position. But Tad, you know what's crazy to me is that even with all the issues at the quarterback position, Niners still have the fourth best odds to win the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, what does that say about this team? It's just like so fundamentally built on both sides of the ball that's like, okay, even with the issues of whether it's going to be Sam Darnold, whether it's going to be Trey Lance, whether it's going to be Brock Purdy, whether it's going to be somebody else, we don't even know what's going to happen this coming season because clearly we saw everybody play the quarterback position for the Niners at one point last season. So I don't know what's going to happen this year, but it's just like you look at that and the fact that they have still those strong of odds, it just speaks to how complete their roster is. I really like what they have there. I mean, looking at their schedule, they have their bye week right at week 9, which is perfect because you got the first half of the schedule. You take a little bit of a break, you reflect on what you did, and you still have a good amount of the schedule left to go. And so it's like you're not early in the season, you're not too late in the season. So it's like it's perfect right there in the middle. I like to have it there. They're going to hit the gate out of the ground running right out of the gate because they're going to play Pittsburgh, the Los Angeles Rams, the New York Giants, Arizona Cardinals in their first 4 weeks. Very winnable games there. Then they get a tough one with Dallas. That should be pretty tough there. Cleveland, I don't know. That could go either way. It's like it's really going to see what we're going to see with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland there. Minnesota's going to be tough. Cincinnati's going to be tough. Then we got the bye week. Jacksonville could be tricky right out of the bye week, but that's coming right out of the bye week. Tampa Bay, I think that's pretty good. Seattle, I don't know what sort of Seattle team we're going to see. That's going to be pretty tricky. We got the Philadelphia Eagles all the way there in week 13. By the way, I have tickets to that game. It is going to be a fun time.
That is going to be a good one.
So that is going to be a great time. We got Seattle again, Arizona, Baltimore, Washington, Los Angeles. So I like the over. I'm predicting they went 13-4 last season. I'm predicting about 12 or 13 wins again. Like, I think they have that strong of a roster. I'm leaning maybe a little bit more towards 12 because it's just like that early season, the quarterback issues, but they have very winnable opponents during those few weeks. So I think they can sort of work out those kinks, whether they're going to bring in Purdy eventually, even though he can't start the season right away. It's like, I think they'll be able to figure all that out.
Has that been confirmed? So he's not starting the season?
I keep hearing different reports. I hear some reports that's like, oh yeah, no, he's good. He's going to be fine by training camp. He'll be all set to go. Then some are like, nah, this might creep into the preseason.
He's like the night. He's like the night in Monty Python where it's just like your arm is missing.
It's flesh wound. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I really don't know what his status is. I'd like to think he should be good to go by around the preseason. So he may miss a week or two there. So we may see your Sam Darnold. You may see your Trey Lance, I think, for those first handful of weeks. But like I said, I think the way the schedule plays out, they should be okay to sort of figure that all out during that first month of the season. Then when they hit those heavy hitters in the middle of the season, that's when it's really going to be like, okay, we really need to make sure the quarterback position is set. But like I said, I like them to get 12 or 13 wins. I think they have a pretty strong roster, returning a lot of their players from last year. Their opponents are pretty good. You got a good mix of easy opponents and tough opponents. But yeah, I actually like them to repeat as division winners as well.
I mean, I think that's the easiest bet is rather than go record, bet on division winner. And we will probably have those odds for you later on when they become available. But that's the whole thing is I think they are really benefiting from an easier division. Sorry, Rams fans. And so I think that's the biggest, benefactor of their success going forward because, man, as a bettor, I look at a team with any time. I don't care how good you are. I did the same thing with the Eagles last year, which of course now looks foolish, but at the time, a lot of people were agreeing with me where it was like, with the Eagles, where it was like, how good is Jalen Hurts really? And I don't care how good that roster is. If you are not sure about that quarterback, you stay away from putting your money on that team. So I don't know if it's Brock Purdy. Dude, you guys could be starting Sam Darnold. You think I'm putting my money on Sam Darnold?
It's a possibility. But like I said, I'll sort of repeat this stat.
It's not a possibility. I'm putting my money on him.
But like I said, I'll repeat this again just in case people are catching us midway here. It's just that the Niners still have the fourth best odds to win the Super Bowl with all those questions at the quarterback positions. Those there says a little bit of something right there as far as how the bettors sort of see the Niners as far as what they're going to do next season.
Well, and I will say this, I know we're like now diving into a Niners section, but it's not so much how good is this roster as you asked me, but it's more of how good is Kyle Shanahan? Like this dude, you can plug any quarterback in his system, and Vegas clearly believes like he could do it. He could do it.
Clearly can. He clearly can. So yeah, we'll see what
quarterback,
happens.
Any running back. I mean, just give him some athletes. That man can make some magic.
It's true. It's very.
Can
very
we
true,
have him?
still.
Can the Colts have him just for a bit? Just for like one season. Just for one season. Damn
Can't
it.
do it. Can't do
Damn
it. All right, so let's move into some other teams here. We talked about the Colts, obviously. We talked about the Niners here. We kind of had to, of course, with this podcast.
Yeah, we had.
But let's get into some other teams, Tad. So what's a team that you want to discuss here as far as their win-loss record predictions, courtesy of our good friends at BetOnline?
I mean, talking about trustworthy coaches, you got Mike Tomlin, who I mean, come on. How do you go 20 straight years without losing record? That's just ridiculous.
That might be.
Don't use the cheat code. Use the cheat code. No, go ahead. Use the cheat code.
I was going to say that I think, some of those wins lately, some of the seasons that he's had lately, he's like squeaked by at like 9-8 and things like that. So it's like, yes, it's a winning record. But if you look at the overall course of the whole season, it's like, was it all that great of a season? I don't know. So I mean,
it wasn't, but think about the train wrecks he's, kind of diverted from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Brown is a psychopath, and he managed to keep that dude under wraps. How he did that, I will never know, and I cannot wait for that 30 for 30, by the way. But so we got Mike Tomlin. He is the pinnacle of, just consistency. We have Kyle Shanahan, another guy that you can always count on. This guy, I know it's been a little up and down, but I also think he's been so good that his downs, people tend to overly react to, and that is John Harbaugh.
And there's a reason he's still employed with the same team as well.
Like, how long has he been in play? He's been there for like 13 years now, right?
At least.
And like, I think that this is the year that Baltimore finally, again, I say finally as if they've been sucking the last 5 years, but they've just been in the running, and Baltimore's not used to being in the running. They're used to being above that. And so I think this is finally the year that Baltimore gets back to being what we're used to Baltimore Ravens being, which is division contenders that are like, oh, I don't want to face this team in the playoffs. And I mean, we got to touch on the biggest storyline of their offseason, locking down Lamar Jackson. Now, look, you've been highly critical of Lamar Jackson. I haven't been as critical, but I'm also not as high on him as other people are. I still think he is not the best passer in the world. I'm still worried about his consistency, but I will say he is a top 10 quarterback easily in my book. I don't know if he's top 5, but I think he's closer in my book to top 5 than in yours. So I think that now they have Lamar Jackson back, and this was funny. So I was looking at all the receiver moves they made this offseason because good Lord, did they make a lot of receiver moves.
They actually addressed the position really well this time.
Well, that's why I like everything they did.
They've tried in the past, and I think I like what they did this year finally. They think they finally got some good pieces.
Exactly, and that's why I like what they did so much this offseason, because for I feel like this is what people have been saying for the past 5 seasons is these are weaknesses on your roster. Why aren't you attacking it? It's like, no, we'll get stronger at corner. But that's not weakness. Like, go after a linebacker. Go after an edge rusher. Like, what are you doing? And this felt like the first offseason in a very long time. They were like, okay, no, these are the areas we need to improve. So not only do they sign Odell Beckham Jr., who I still believe can have a good year. I don't think he's obviously quite the same with his age and his injury history of like, oh yeah, no, it's OBJ. He'll have 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. I'm not expecting that production from him, but I think he will still be a legitimate threat on the field. They still have Rashad Bateman, who yes, is jumping back from an injury, but he's young. It's, not that you ever want to be injured, but if you're going to be injured, now's the time. And then, of course, they drafted Zay Flowers, one of our favorite receivers out of this year's draft. And I think he provides a great deep stretch. And now here's the part that I was talking about earlier, Mer. I completely forgot this signing happened. They also have Nelson Aguilar.
Yep. Nelson Aguilar.
Totally forgot that happened. Yeah. Totally forgot that happened. And let's not forget they have a small little player. I think you may have heard of him called Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely is pretty
Likely,
good
he
too.
was my next note.
Charlie Kohler's a really good backup tight end there. You forgot about Devin Duvernay. So I mean, they got some good pieces there.
Devin Duvernay was about 3 notes down from now, but it's just, and that's the thing is like they are so loaded on offense right now. And by the way, 2 players we haven't mentioned: J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
Oh, of course, the running back positions, of course. We're looking at more of the receivers.
And let's not forget, I'm not going to call this like a top 3 offensive line, but this is a very good offensive line they're playing behind. Yeah. So my entire point is the Ravens went into this offseason going, we need to fix this offense. Good God, have they done it? And this defense, while not complete, is still a very, very good defense. So I think that their win total, which again, according to our friends at Battle Line, is put at 10.5 with odds for the over 10.5 at plus 100. And this is something that got me in a lot of trouble during the season. I always look out for our listeners. I will always find you that good underdog. Now, I will keep doing it until the day I die. Plus 100 with the Ravens with 11 wins. Let's ignore all these half numbers. They need to win 11 games for you to win this bet. Let's look at their schedule, okay? The only way I see them losing more than 7 games is that they really drop a couple. And before you go, well, what about Lamar Jackson's health? They made the playoffs with Anthony Brown playing quarterback for them. They made the playoffs with Tyler Huntley, and they almost won that playoff game, by the way, with Tyler Huntley playing quarterback. So this is an offense that before they added all this talent that we previously talked about, now they have Lamar Jackson who can hopefully stay healthy. I will say that is the one big X factor in this entire thing is can Lamar Jackson stay healthy? But as I pointed out, even if he doesn't, they still stand a shot. So I think here are my couple losses for the Ravens. Unfortunately, they opened the season against the Eagles. That's a rough draw. I think that's a loss. I think they lose the Bengals once. I think they lose the Steelers once.
Well, hang on. I want to clarify something. They don't open with the Eagles because that's their preseason game. They opened with the Houston Texans.
Okay, there we go. Well, either way, I think they split the series against the Bengals, against the Steelers. They play your 49ers.
That should be a good one.
I'm calling upset there. I don't know what it is. I feel like just Nick Bosa's going to just pancake Lamar Jackson and just like flatten it. It's going to be like a Looney Tunes cartoon where he just like literally puts him in the ground and he's like flat like a pancake.
Well, I will say though, the Niners do struggle with mobile quarterbacks, and Lamar Jackson is the epitome of a mobile quarterback.
If he's healthy, though, because that's a later game.
That is true. It is a later game, but I think that's going to add a lot more stock into that game, too, because both teams will be playing for playoff seeding, potentially, division crowns, what have you. So I think that's going to be a very important game. You're going to get the most out of both squads for sure there. But I just want to throw that tidbit. That's just like, Niners are not always the best at stopping the mobile quarterbacks. No, so they do have an advantage.
And now, I know that I said they would split it between the Steelers, but get this. Their last couple games of the season, let me replace my Eagles preseason loss, even though that's still probably going to be a preseason loss. With this, they have a rough stretch in the last 4 games. They play the Miami Dolphins, where if Tua is healthy, speaking of another team that could really be good if their quarterback remains healthy, if Tua remains healthy, I think they lose that game, to be perfectly honest, because like you said, the 49ers struggle on defense. The Miami Dolphins really good on defense. And do you want to know who their last game of the season is against this year?
They close with Pittsburgh.
That reeks of a Pittsburgh. We will close you out of the playoff hunt here. So you know what? Maybe they get swept by Pittsburgh because of a little certain great quarterback by the name of Kenny Pickett.
If he can stay healthy too,
he'll be fine. But either way, I really think that I find it hard to believe the Ravens will struggle to win more than 11 games this season. I think that as long as, again, the big X factor here is can Lamar Jackson stay healthy? If he can, easy 11 wins here.
So what's your final record prediction? Are you saying they're going to go 11-6? Do you think they're going to go 12-5? Do you think it's going to be 13-4? Like, I mean, what do you think?
13-4. 13-4. Assuming, again, with the huge asterisk that Lamar Jackson stays healthy, but if he can stay healthy for most, if not all of the season, I'm going 13-4. This team is good, dude. You have good coaching, a good quarterback, a good defense, and I will say a great offense now. You got all the makings for a good playoff run here.
And I think they've always had that, but just unfortunately, they never were able to put it all together. So I think that's the thing that worries me. So
staying healthy.
No, that's true. That's true. But I think just sometimes execution has always been a factor for them as well. So I still like them to get over that over of, I think you said 10.5, right?
10.5. Yep.
Yeah. So I still like that over as well. So I do like them to get at least 11 wins, but 13-4, that's where I'm like, I don't know. And everything sort of has to go right for them to get 13-4. So, but yeah, I do like the 11 wins. I do like that over there. So yeah, plus 100. Thanks to our friends at Bet Online. Not a bad bet to make if you want to make that bet out there. So I'm going to go with one of my overs. I'm going to stick to the AFC as well. I'm going to go with LAFB Network's the Los Angeles Chargers. Okay. They're currently slated at 9.5 wins. Over is minus 120. That is what I'm going to be picking here. Last year, they went 10-7. So I think they can at least replicate that record, if not get a little more. Because, I mean, get this, Tad. The NFL believes in the Chargers because they have 6 primetime games this season. They are tied with the most. They are tied with the Cowboys, which I think every year they're always going to get the most primetime games. It's just a given. The Bills.
How many primetime games did Cooper Rush get in the past 2 years?
I swear to God, I talked to one of my friends who's a Cowboys fan. I was like, the Cowboys could go 0-16.
Not me. Not me, by the way. I am not that friend.
Well, you're not a Cowboys fan. So
I know, but I need to clarify that since I'm living in Dallas.
There you go. But I was like, the Cowboys could go 0-16, or now in this case 0-17, and they will still get 100%. At least 4 primetime games the following season. Because it's just like, yeah, it is what it is. It's a big market. It's a big team. Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. So tied with the Cowboys, the Bills, and the Chiefs also have the most games. I was actually kind of surprised that the NFC winning Super Bowl, the NFC winning Eagles did not have 6 primetime games. They're only having, I think they have 5 this year, tied with my Niners. Unfortunately, Tad, your Colts do not have a single.
I'm fine. No, that's not unfortunate. No,
I know, but still, at least it would have been nice to get
I want
one.
to waste one of my few primetime
game or Monday night game, but no. They're cut out.
No, I don't want to watch that shit. No.
It's not happening.
No. I want to end my nights on a good note. Like, are you kidding me? I'm fortunate. No, it's the opposite. Anyway.
Just saying. But let's just jump back to the Chargers here.
Can't help but your 49ers that pop up on that list, by the way.
5 games.
Shit.
But let's jump back to the Chargers, the original topic at hand here. So they were able to work out a contract revision with Austin Ekeler, so he is going to be coming back in fold for 2023. I mean, he always was, but there's a lot of bit of speculation with him wanting a trade, whether he was actually going to be traded, but he worked it out. He's going to play this season for them under contract, and he will be a free agent in 2024. That's sort of looking that way sort of thing. So incentive-laden extension, so we'll see how that all plays out. So, I mean, he's going to be looking good for the Chargers. The coaching staff moved on from Joe Lombardi. In comes Kellen Moore, who I think, Tad, is an upgrade on the offensive side of the ball for them. Because obviously you look at the Cowboys, 3 of the 4 seasons that Kellen Moore was offensive coordinator for them, they produced a top 10 offense in scoring, also including back-to-back seasons in last year and the year before being top 5, including 2021, where they were first in scoring. So, I mean, this guy knows how to get the ball into the end zone multiple times in a given game. So you add that with Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, obviously Austin Ekeler. The new guy, let's get to the rookies here. Quentin Johnston drafted in the first round. He's going to add some punch to his offense. They obviously got it on the defensive side with the USC standout, Tuli Pelotu, who's been added to the team, and Deion Henley added the middle linebacker position. So they got a lot of good pieces on their team. So honestly, looking at that 9.5, I think that's going to be beaten pretty substantially. Not substantially. That's a little bit too strong of a word.
I'm about to say substantially.
No, not substantially.
You just call my Ravens prediction bold.
Yes. No, my mistake. Not substantially. That was a little bit too strong of a word. I think they got a pretty good cushion, I'd say, from that 9.5. I'm predicting at least 11 or 12 wins from the squad if everything sort of plays out the way they can. Unfortunately, Tad, we were talking about this before we recorded. They play in a division with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not sure they could win the division, but they will make it close. I very much see the Chargers and the Chiefs sort of being that 2-horse race the entire season long to see who could win the division. It's really going to come down to those season series, obviously, between both the Chargers and the Chiefs. Each time that they play, those games are going to be very high-watch type of games to see who could sort of win that season series. That's going to separate probably who can win that division. So who knows? Maybe the Chiefs will sort of have a setback and they'll have, a couple games that they'll drop here. The Chargers can sort of leapfrog them. So, I mean, it's very much in the cards that they can win the division, but unfortunately just Kansas City just has some sort of magic where they can just get it done anytime that they want to. So we'll see what happens. But I do like the Chargers to be the main contenders with the Chiefs this year. Like, I mean, we talked about the Raiders, obviously. It's just they somehow find a way to bungle things, Raider themselves out of sort of wins and a division crowd. The Broncos, I mean, we were so high up last year. I think this year a lot of people are very skeptical. We'll see what happens with Russell Wilson and Sean Payne there. But I very much like the Chargers to contend with the Chiefs there. I mean, can you argue anything against that?
Yeah, that magic the Chiefs have is called Patrick Mahomes. First off,
That's fair. That's fair.
That's the magic. I shouldn't even put that critic. That dude's insane. But no, I think it's funny that you and I both picked the the Chargers and the Ravens for are over because they both have the same X factor. How healthy can they be? Sure. That's been the Chargers' biggest problem over the last couple of years, and that's why I was this sounds kind of wrong without context, but that's why I was so excited when the Chargers drafted Quentin Johnston out of TCU, was that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen cannot stay healthy. So can they, or can they stay healthy enough to let Quentin Johnston learn beneath them? Or is QJ finally going to get his chance to prove himself in the NFL? Finally, as if he's been there forever. But is he going to? Well,
finally,
let me talk about the rookie. Let me talk about this though. This is why I'm saying finally, because tell me this is not always what happens with the Chargers. Is Mike Williams and Keenan Allen kill it for the first 5 or 6 weeks, and then after that, one of them goes down, one of them comes back. Oh, the other one just went down. Like I feel like that's what's happened over the past 2 or 3 years.
It's very true.
So that's my problem. Is it's just can their consistency match that? And it's just I worry about their injury history, but much like the Ravens, if they can stay healthy, 100%. I actually think the Chargers can make a run for the division title. I think that the Chiefs are now the weakest they've been in years. Who is the Chiefs' number 1 receiver right now?
So that's a tough thing. They don't need a number 1 receiver.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They absolutely do. That's my whole thing is because Travis Kelce, look, he's going to drop off eventually. We saw with Rob Gronkowski, and I know people would laugh at me 5 years ago if I said that with Gronk. I'm like, Gronk, his production is going to stop pretty soon, and eventually it did stop. It was still pretty good, but it wasn't nearly like the difference maker it was. Kelce, you cannot keep depending on Kelce to be your go-to guy. You need a guy on the outside for Mahomes to throw to. And I know I've talked up Rashee Rice a lot, but you can't put that much pressure on a rookie. So I think that with the Chiefs, by the way, they still don't have a dependable running back, by the way. And there's a lot to question about the Chiefs offensive, side of the ball. There's a lot to question about their defensive side of the ball. They're a lot like what I said with the Ravens, where they had little spotty good spots. That was terrible.
Wow.
A lot of spotty good.
You need to stop right now.
Hold on. Let me clarify. A lot of spotty good roster positions, but I don't think they can come together cohesively as a unit on both sides of the ball to really continue to be the unquestioned contender. I'm not saying the Chiefs are about to drop off. I'm just not sure they're going to be the contender that we all think they are. This is not an unquestioned dynasty that we're heading into. That was redemption. Here. That was redemption right there. That was redemption. I worded that incredibly well.
Gosh.
Oh, spotty. Yeah. What did I even say?
Spotty good spots. That is Tad's new nickname on this podcast going forward.
It
is. Yeah, it is. I am not going to forget that one.
But my bottom line is I think the Chargers could be contenders. I'm just worried about their health, and I'm worried about the division they're in.
No, 100%. It's accurate there. I mean, just really quickly going through the schedule. So I think the week 5 bye, we talked about this, the early bye, I think that could be a little bit troublesome.
It was funny. I think it was last year the Colts had a week 4 bye, and I was like, God damn it. That shit hurts you in the long run.
Having the early season bye is going to be tough because then you just have a huge slog to get through there. So they honestly could start 4-0, Tad, because they play the Dolphins, the Titans, the Vikings, and the Raiders. So I'm not saying for sure they'll go 4-0, but they can. It's right out the gate. You don't know how either of these teams I think that I like their chances. I'm not saying they're going to guarantee wins, but they very could be 4-0. I like their chances to sort of do that there. They do have a rough stretch where they're going to play the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Jets, and the Ravens. So that's going to be some trouble there. But they even it out because then they play the NFC North. With the exception of the Vikings, everybody else is sort of like a question mark. It's a huge question mark. It's like the Detroit Lions. It's like, are you buying the hype? Are you riding that hype train? Who knows how that's going to all play out. The Green Bay Packers, they got Jordan Love. It all depends on how well he plays. That's how the Packers are going to go. And then you got the Chicago Bears. It's like, did they improve enough on the offensive side of the ball to make them more competitive? I think on defense, they have some question marks too. So it's like, you look at the rest of those teams. So it's like that sort of balances out how they could get some wins there. You already talked about the division. I think they could get some wins from the Raiders. Obviously, they could get some wins from potentially a season split with the Chiefs there. And the Broncos, like I said, I think they possibly could get a season sweep with the Broncos as well. They do play both those teams towards the end of the season. So we'll see how the Broncos sort of go as the season progresses and how well Sean Payton implements his offensive style and how much he can get out of Russell Wilson. But yeah, I do like the Chargers to be very competitive. Like I said, I'm very much in that sort of 12 to 13 range for them to get wins.
Okay, couple things real quick. I didn't mean to bring this up. First off, in terms of the Broncos, in terms of betting, in terms of fantasy, in terms of everything else, I am staying the fuck away from Denver because that is the biggest. I don't know if you agree with me or not. That is the biggest question mark going into the NFL.
It's one of the bigger ones because I think everybody was all aboard the hype trade for Denver last year, and then this year it's like, is it the same? Who knows now? It's like, what do we do?
Was that Russell Wilson's fault? Is Sean Payton actually that good of a coach? I don't know. We're going to find out. I'm staying away from Denver in terms of betting, in terms of fantasy. I'm staying away from them. But anyway, one of the things I wanted to bring up was the fact that you brought up Kellen Moore earlier. And that was, it's so funny because I'm hearing so many bitter Dallas fans down here being like, well, of course Kellen Moore looked like a good offensive coordinator. He had CeeDee Lamb. He had Amari Cooper. He had Ezekiel Elliott. Blah, blah, blah. Like, they're just like talking like he's not that good. How many of you people down here being Dallas, have heard of Tony? Why do I do this to myself? Tony Pollard. Did I do that right?
Actually got it right finally.
There we go. See, now now I finally learned how to pronounce this man's name correctly. How many Dallas fans do you think actually have heard of him before Kellen Moore learned how to utilize him?
True.
I think his ability to utilize the multi running back system is up. I think honest to God, I really do think that's why Austin Ekeler was like, I need to get out of here because he's about to prove that like they can do this without me. I really think that. I'm not saying it's a sole factor, but I think that was a factor in him being like, either pay me now or I'm out of here. Because Kellen Moore, his ability to like recognize talent and be able to be like, okay, this is what you do best. Go there. Again, yet another reason why I was so excited for Quentin Johnston to go there is Kellen Moore's ability to do so. So I think Kellen Moore, as you said, is absolute upgrade over Lombardi. Nothing against Lombardi. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's great, but I don't think he's terrible. But I think Kellen Moore can really unlock something special in this offense because what is the one thing every good offensive coordinator needs? It's a great quarterback, and Justin Herbert is a great quarterback. So I think that San Diego.
Okay.
That was bad. I think the great city of Los Angeles with the Chargers can accomplish winning the division. That was, I can't believe I've done that. That was the first time in years I've done that. But anyway, I really do think the Chargers can be a special team this year.
For sure. So I got a final prediction of them going 12-5 this year, heading into 2023. So
I agree with that. 12-5. I like that.
So let's get to our second team here. Spotty Spots. What else you got for me?
I've earned that. Spice spots.
I don't know what was going on.
I don't either. It's 10 o'clock at night. I dealt with the same class for 6 hours. It's like the orange brain cells with cats. It's like I have one left remaining, and yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to go. I went over last time. I'm going to go under this time. And I'm going to take the under with the Green Bay Packers. And so Bet Online had them at over or under 7.5 wins. And so the under was 7.5 at plus 100, just like the Ravens with the over. And I'm taking the under here. I'm not a big believer in the Packers here. Jordan Love's career stats is 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. just what I've seen from him, and yes, I'm aware it's a very small sample size, I'm not seeing it. I'm really not. And it's just, he strikes me as a career backup. And notice I'm not saying he's a total career bust. How dare they? Blah, blah, blah. It's a late first round pick. You busted on him. He's not Paxton Lynch, right? Where Paxton Lynch was like, oh my God, this dude is like absolute trash. Jordan Love, the promise is there, just not as a franchise starter. And maybe he's improved since then. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm not cheering against Jordan Love here. But I'm just, from what I've seen from him on the starting field, I'm not a believer that he can really lead the Packers to success, especially because this Packers offense is so inexperienced. They have Jaden Reed, because I almost said Green in my notes. Jaden Reed, the rookie at Michigan State. They have help me out, Christian Watson, the the second-year guy at North Dakota State. Romeo Dobbs, the second-year guy at Nevada. Notice how none of these guys have over 3 years of experience. Amir, total, do you want to know how much experience their top 2 tight ends have in the NFL?
Their top 2?
Top 2.
Well, I'd probably say less than 3 if you're counting Josiah DeGuara. If you're counting just the rookies, then 0.
0 is the answer I was going
okay,
for.
All right.
Because Robert Tonyan, and I know this is news to a lot of people, Robert Tonyan, no longer a Packer. Yeah. He is in Chicago. Is no longer a Packer. So like Tucker Kraft is probably going to be their starting tight end going into next year. So you're basically going in to a season.
Okay, there's a little bit of a hot take. You think Tucker Kraft over Luke Musgrave?
I think so.
Wow.
I think that goes into our rankings though as well. I think that was a little bit of a thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
But either way, you're going into a season with your entire offense, other than your offensive line, being rookies, essentially. And just like that never leads to success. And you look at the NFC North, the Lions are getting better. The Vikings basically stay the same. The Bears, pretty good. I would argue the Bears have gotten better this offseason.
I would say so.
Exactly. So I think that, with the division as competitive as it is, and get this, what were we just talking about? Who's the division they have to play other than their own? The AFC West. I think this is going to be a long year for the Packers. Honestly, there are a couple teams I have saved for upset, and this will be a good quick hit segment. There are a couple teams I have saved for upset picks to be the number 1 team picking next year. Packers are one of them.
Wow.
I think the Packers could be really, really bad next year.
That might be a little bit of a hot take, but you know what? I think top 10, I think, is more than reasonable. I think it's just like, I think
they're locked. No. All right, I'll one up it. They're locked for the top 10. They are locked to pick in the top 10 next year.
Okay. No, that's fair. That, like I said, that's still reasonable. If you're locked for the number 1 overall pick, it's a little bit more of a hot take. That is a hot take. I'll give you.
Why are you going to go Mr. Freeze on my hot take there?
I'm sorry.
Fine. Top 3. Top 3. You go Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this when I was talking about the Chargers there, where it's just like the Green Bay Packers it's pretty much they're going to go as Jordan Love's go. And what I see from Jordan Love is exactly like you said. It's like I see some flashes there where it's like you see the potential. You see why he was drafted in the first round. And specifically the Packers traded up in the first round to get him. Like, I don't know if you remember that, Ted. They actually did that.
Trust me, I remember that.
So I think just what I'm going to see for Jordan Love is just he's going to be good enough. He's not going to be that sort of game changer that Aaron Rodgers was. He's not going to be that sort of franchise altering type of quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is. It's like he's going to be good enough. And it's like you sort of fall into that limbo of like, well, he's doing all right. Do we give him an extension now or do we look for something else?
And it's like Kyler Murray syndrome.
Exactly. Very similar to Kyler Murray. So it's like, I think the biggest thing that sort of is a big factor for the Green Bay Packers is if they end up in that top 10. And like you said, if they're locked for a top 3 spot, that's where then they sort of make that decision of like, okay, do we go with the Caleb Williams? Do we go with the Drake May? Do we go with somebody else here? That sort of conversation starts to creep in depending on how Jordan Love's season goes. So it's a lot of pressure on him. And just like you said, I think just that inexperience around him, besides that offensive line, that can either be, I think it's very black and white. It can either work very horribly where it's just everybody's so inexperienced, Or I could also see the flip side where it works for them, where it's like they're all young, they're all learning together, they're all willing to invest time to learn the system and become better.
I was about to say they buy into the system so much.
Exactly.
There are no egos there yet.
Exactly, right? Because they're all developing their NFL careers all at the same time. So I could see that happening. I'm leaning more towards it's not going to work, but I can see it. I can see it potentially happening where it's just like they're all clicking because they're all, like you said, trying to develop. There's no egos. There's no face of the franchise just yet, sort of thing. So they're all going to learn together. They're going to be able to be successful that way. So I could see that happening. But just for me, yeah, I think just the Packers just didn't get as good as the Lions got. There's a lot of hype around them. Like I said, I like the moves that the Bears did. The Vikings went 13-4 last year, so there's very much a good chance that they could replicate that record, maybe 1 or 2 wins shy, but just they're the front runners right now in that division, so they're going to be strong too. So it's just like, yeah, you look at the rest of the NFC, it's just like I don't like their chances to beat that competitive. So I think for me, 100% locked to be in the top 10, top 3. It wouldn't surprise me, but just it's a little hard for me to say it now.
You forced me there. You forced me there.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, but no, I mean, I'm right there with you. If they were in the AFC South or the NFC South, I'd be like 7.5 wins, 100%. You can get there. But the fact that their division is just everybody else is getting better or staying the same, because I didn't love the Vikings offseason, but the Vikings didn't get substantially worse this offseason. So the Lions and Bears got better. Vikings stayed the same. Packers tanked like a submarine going down. So again, that is the Vikings at under 7.5 wins at plus 100. Safest bet of all the records, in my opinion.
So what's your final record prediction then? Because you're pretty much locking up for a top 3. So what are you going to say here?
4 wins.
Okay, so you're thinking 4-13.
I think one upset, and then they'll, I don't even think they'll be any of the teams they really should. Like I'm really expecting the Packers to be bad this year.
Okay.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if I'm touching a single Packer in fantasy this year. Maybe Christian Watson. You can talk me into Christian Watson, but Aaron Jones, I'm not touching him.
No Aaron Jones. Okay. No AJ Dillon. Okay.
Oh God, no! You can't. But hence why I'm not touching either one, because I think this offense. I honestly believe is going to be a clusterfuck, at least fantasy wise.
All right.
Ooh,
good to know.
That's a good fantasy segment for later. Players to stay away from.
Oh yeah, no, we'll get to that. I feel like we have a whole summer to get.
I feel like I do this every episode.
Yeah, seriously, we have a lot of time before we get heavy into our fantasy content for sure here. So let me get to my final team that I want to bring up. It is the Carolina Panthers at 7.5 wins at over under. So I'm going to go with the over here, and surprisingly, Tad, odds are at minus 135. So the bettors are actually sort of siding with the Panthers here to go and get over 7.5 wins. So last year they went 7-10. Tad, there's a 3-way tie in the NFC South last year at 7-10 between the Saints, the Panthers, and the Atlanta Falcons. The Buccaneers won the division. Do you know what their record was when they won the division, Tad?
See, now you're making me do math. 8-9? Is that the correct math?
That is absolutely correct. They won the division at 8-9.
What's the bigger upset? The Buccaneers winning the division at 8 or 9, or Tad being able to add 8 and 9 correctly together?
Oh, 100% 8 and 9, Tad.
Oh, 100%. I will absolutely agree with that.
Tad.
I am in no way offended by that.
Yeah, but let's get to the Panthers here, because honestly, Tad, we've been talking a lot about them on the podcast, surprisingly, and I think a lot of the NFL media has been talking about them because they've been very active in the offseason. So obviously they get a new head coach of Frank Reich. I love their coaching staff. They got a lot of great experience on that coaching staff. That's sort of why I'm believing the Panthers are going to win 7.5. Like, Tad, I'm going to read off their coaching staff for you here.
Please
Thomas
don't.
Brown, OC, former running back of the Los Angeles Rams. Ejiro Evero, very underrated defensive coordinator. He was not the reason the Broncos sucked. It was the offense. Ejiro Evero was very good. He is their new DC. Deuce Staley, former great running back with the Eagles. He is an assistant head coach and the running backs coach. Josh McCown, quarterbacks coach. Not bad there. You got D'Angelo Hall. He has got a coaching position. He is assistant DB coach for the Carolina Panthers.
What?
That's what I'm saying. I love this coaching staff. I love this coaching staff. Dom Capers, formerly of the Green Bay Packers defense, the Houston Texans head coach formerly. He's a senior defensive assistant. And one of your guys, Tad, Jim Caldwell, is a senior assistant on that staff as well.
I thought you were going to say Frank Reich. I'm like, don't you dare call him my boy.
Well, technically he's one of your guys too, but
he's not. No, he's
good.
not. I
Jim
disavowed
Caldwell
him years ago.
Jim Caldwell specifically. So honestly, there's a lot of great experience, especially with the young team. They made some great moves in free agency. We've talked about this many times. I'm just going to say it again here. They signed Adam Thielen at receiver, DJ Chark at receiver, Hayden Hurst at the tight end position is a good upgrade. Miles Sanders, one of my predictions, the only prediction I've ever gotten right in free agency. Very happy about that one. He is now a member of the Carolina Panthers, their bell cow there. Speaking of bells, Von Bell is a member of their secondary there. And Bradley Bozeman, a really good upgrade on the interior of the offensive line to really stabilize that offensive line overall. So really good free agent sightings. And then obviously they made that big move with the Chicago Bears, trade up to the number 1 selection to select Bryce Young to add to that team there to change the franchise, turn the page, hopefully, with this experience of the coaching staff, with the young promise that Bryce Young has. We'll see about his, durability and his height and how that'll all play into factor there. But I think he's sort of got the tools to sort of make this franchise sort of take that leap and become a lot better compared to what they've had in the past. But yeah, honestly, like I see that 7.5 Tad, and I think they can actually exceed that. I actually like them to sort of get 9 wins. I like them to be a sort of contender in that division, depending on how things play. Maybe they'll get to double-digit wins because, Tad, like I said, they were at 7-10 last year with sort of the issues of Matt Rule, and then they had Steve Wilks. Now, Tad, if you remember, Matt Rule was their head coach to start the season. He went 1-4, and then he got fired. Then they bring in Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks went 6-6. He was able to get more out of this team. They leaned on the running game a lot more. That was able to establish that. They played good defense. So I think now with this experienced coaching staff, I think they could play a very similar type of ball as Bryce Young sort of gets more acclimated in this offense. Eventually, they'll start to unleash him a little bit more. But yeah, Miles Sanders as the lead running back there, I love that. You got a really good young defense with Derek Brown and Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin and JC Horn. And obviously they signed Von Bell to bring some experience. So, I mean, like I said, Ejiro Evero has a lot to work with. He's one of my favorite defensive coordinators in the league. I think he's a really up-and-coming star in the league. I think he's going to make this defense very, very dangerous, especially, Tad, we say this almost every episode, I think. The NFC South is wide open.
It's like
you look at this
It's
team,
so bad, dude.
It is. So it's like they have a good shot to be division winners if everything sort of plays the way that they want it to. Honestly, like I said, I like them getting at least 9 wins. We talked about the NFC South. I think it's very winnable games there. It's very curious to see how they're all going to play out because the Saints got a little bit better. The Falcons got a little bit better. The Buccaneers, I think, stayed about the same, maybe a little bit better as well.
I think the Buccaneers got worse.
I think you can argue that for sure, but I think like everybody's sort of in that sort of like gray area where it's like, did they get better? Did they get worse?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Look at the NFC South has been the goddamn gray area for the last decade. Like even with Tom Brady, they're the gray area because he got fucking beat by New Orleans Saints by 50 points. Like it's
something
just
like that. I can't remember
this division's so confusing, man.
But yeah, so that's what I think. So it's like, they could split with every single team in that division. They could get some sweeps. They can get swept. I really have no idea how that's going to go. But I think I like their chances to win more of those divisional games to be ahead as far as that, head-to-head tiebreaker as far as winning games in your division. Fortunately, Tad, they face the AFC South. So they got some very winnable games there with the Titans and the Colts and the Texans. The Jaguars, I don't know, because if they play as well as they played last year, Jaguars will obviously be a very tough game. They probably won't win that game. And then they also play the NFC North, who we already brought up when we were talking about the Chargers, where it's like, are the Packers going to be good? Jordan Love, question mark, obviously. The Detroit Lions, can you believe the hype? The Bears, did they get markedly better? The Vikings, yeah, they stayed about the same. Maybe they got a little bit worse. I don't know. So there's a lot of question marks surrounding the opponents that they're playing, but I really like the experience that they have on the coaching staff. They got a lot of young players that I think are going to buy into a new system and willing to sort of make that change to become a better franchise. And like I said, I think I like their chances to exceed that 7.5. So I got them going at least 9-8, but I'm actually, Tad, now the more that I talked about it, I think they get double digits. I think they go 10-7.
Wow. I mean, honestly, I don't hate it because exactly like what you said is Carolina showed so much promise. I mean, let's go back to last November when Christian McCaffrey was traded and you and I both were saying, well, Carolina's phoning it in.
Yeah.
They actually, I wouldn't say got better, but they got more competitive. They seem to be, more in it after trading McCaffrey, which was weird. And
it was a little weird, but yeah. was good to see.
And help me out here. So because I called this, I said Chuba Hubbard would be a legitimate fantasy option after McCaffrey was traded. Who was the other running back that blew up? I'm blanking on his name right
Deontay
now.
Foreman, and he is still with the team, so he's going to be a change of pace with Miles Sanders there. So, I mean, he's staying in this. I mean, it's going to be a new system, so, I mean, he will have to change a little bit. But really quick, Dad, I actually forgot about that. Deuce Staley is on the coaching staff. He was in Philadelphia when Miles Sanders was drafted there, and he found success there. So I bet you there's going to be a lot of continuity. He's going to be able to get a lot out of Miles Sanders being a former coach of his back in Philadelphia.
So my entire point, though, being is they have a very, very dependable rotation of running backs there, which is the key to helping a good young quarterback, which Bryce Young is a good running game. So there's not too much pressure on Bryce Young. And I think really when this offseason started, we all kind of hung back and be like, all right, Carolina's going to tank. And then, like you said, they started signing all these veteran players, and we're sitting there like, okay, guess we're not going to tank. Like, guess you go for it. Like, that's a choice. And it's just like, but if you're going to make that choice, goddamn, they did it pretty well. And they did it with the best quarter. That was my concern with CJ Stroud. I know those rumors, and that was just draft rumors, obviously, in hindsight. But that was my concern with, they might take CJ Stroud. No, that's why you take Bryce Young. He was the most pro-ready quarterback. I don't think statistically he's going to kill it, but I think he's going to be the perfect rookie game manager in this offense. I actually love this pick. I could totally see Carolina. And it's funny because I was disappointed when you showed me your pick. This is the rare case we actually knew each other's picks before the episode. Because every year of the past, I don't know, like 15 years in the NFL, there's been a worst to first division, kind of switcheroo there. I was like, Carolina's the worst to first. And I was like, shit, they weren't worst. It's like, damn it.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they're not there.
No,
but
technically they're worse. Though. Well, okay, they traded for the number 1 overall pick, but I mean,
right, exactly. So because remember, everyone picked them to be worse, and it was like, oh shit, no, Chicago. We're like, okay, and that's why Carolina was like, yeah, no, we need to get back up there. But while not worse to first, I think we'll see a massive improvement. I think Carolina, if I'm a Panthers fan, I am absolutely ecstatic right now. Like, you guys are absolutely heading in the right direction. You should be thrilled. And so remind me again, it was 7.5?
Correct. 7.5 wins was the over-under, courtesy of our good friends at Bet Online. Like I said, I went with the over at -135. It's not a favorable number for you guys, but I still think make a small enough bet, if you especially parlay it with, like, let's say, obviously we talked about the Chargers and the Ravens and the was the last thing that we discussed that you had brought up there.
The Packers.
The Packers there. So it's like if you parlay that with some of the other teams that we decided, that it's like make yourself a good amount of money there as the season ends there.
I'm going to say 8-9 for the Panthers.
8-9.
Not terrible. A good step in the right direction, especially with a first-year quarterback. I'll take that.
No, for sure.
Let me tell you, if the Colts go 8-9 with Anthony Richardson, I'm going to be fucking thrilled.
Yeah, that's a great improvement for sure. Yeah. That's a great.
I'm not quite as high on them as you, but 8-9. I say 8-9 for the Panthers. But yeah, no, 7.5. That's a great odd to take there.
Exactly. So we're still early in the sort of off season here. So we'll get you all of our record predictions as the summer moves along, as we get closer to the beginning of the season. But yeah, we are hitting the summer months here, and we appreciate everybody who tuned into today's episode, giving you a preview of what's to come later on in the summer. Obviously, when we give you our full record predictions, maybe not the episode, but definitely through graphics for sure. I mean, and the best way you can find out about everything that's happening with our podcast here, whether it's episodes or videos or graphics, is you see it come along on the ticker right below. It's going to come down right now.
Timing is always impeccable with this. This is incredible.
You got us on Twitter. You got me at @TheDesai23. You got Tad at TadTheSide94. You got the show at The Desai Guys. And, of course, we're on Instagram at The Desai Guys. We finally got all of our draft grades out. So, I mean, yeah, make sure you check it out. All of our social media handles for lots of great graphics in case we can't get to everything in a very jam-packed episode for sure that we always have planned for you guys. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You listen right on the LEFP Network website. Just hit that subscribe button. Always be up to date with our episodes as far as listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you're subscribing to LEFP Network's YouTube channel. They got a lot of great content for you guys when it's covering the Chargers and the Rams at the professional level. And, of course, you got the Bruins and the Trojans at the college level because, yeah, there's a lot of great content that's going to be coming this season. Who are we looking at the depth charts? Are we looking at, position battles, obviously, schedule release, obviously just, how they think about the win predictions and things like that. So make sure you're checking them out. Lots of great content there. Check out the website. Lots of great articles from them as well as us. I'm pretty sure we're going to be sprinkling some articles during the summer as well. But guys, to everybody who's listening, who's watching, who's reading, who's interacting with us on social media, I mean, guys, we really can't thank you enough.
And like Amir said, we are heading into the summer months, which means we have so much more freedom content-wise. So if there's content you want to hear, you let us know. I'm not going to promise we're going to put it on the air, but I promise we will at least consider it. So hit us up with those ideas. Like Amir said, right there, at the Desai Guys on Instagram, at TadDesai94 on Twitter, at Amir Desai23 on Twitter. Hit any of us up on any of those platforms. Again, I promise you, we will see it. We will talk about it because God knows we have a lot of time to talk about a lot of topics going into June. So thank you guys so much as always for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, everyone, please, especially enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe, everyone.